So I'm Jenna Tiffany. I have been heavily involved in the development of the course. So if there are any questions about the course directly, please do ask away at this webinar. But what I'm going to be talking about today is how to strategically use AI. There's lots of talk about using AI in marketing. There's lots of great examples of how to use AI in marketing, but how do we do it strategically? Because we could use it in maybe some cases the wrong way. And actually, maybe there's some other opportunities that we could also be using AI for to help create more effective marketing. So I'm going to bring out quite a few examples that I'm going to talk through today, both from clients, but also my own experience as a customer. So please do share your thoughts and your questions as we go through this webinar today. Just a little bit about me before I start. So outside of marketing, this is my family, my son there in the middle of my husband. I'm a keen runner. I'm currently supposedly trying to train for a marathon. I say supposedly, I've had about a week's break. And we have 2 dogs, so we love to go on long walks and hikes. And I actually relocated with my family to Portugal. So I've been in Portugal now for nearly 5 years. And before that, we were living in London, my husband and I, on a narrow boat. So I saw a couple of you there mentioning that you're in London. So when you see those narrow boats, I used to live on one of those. It was also awesome to see that a couple of you are joining from Bristol. I'm originally from Exeter in the UK, not that far away from there either. Okay, so outside of teaching and working with Forthrev and LSE, I run a marketing agency, a global marketing agency, and this is just a snapshot of some of the brands that we work with. I also work with other universities writing courses and teach all over the world. I'm actually going to Thailand in 2 weeks to teach there for 3 weeks about marketing strategy. I've written a book on marketing strategy. It won Business Book of the Year. Some of the frameworks and models I'm going to talk through today come directly from the book, and I'm also using some other widely known ones as well today. And I also volunteer for an animal shelter here in Portugal, just to give you a bit of a snapshot about me. So what's strategy got to do with it? Strategy, I'm a strategist at heart, so I always start with a strategy. But actually, I think it's important when we're thinking about AI that we take a step back, because we can all start to get very excited about the new shiny technology that we have access to. But actually, even with vast amount of data, huge amounts of different types of technology, marketing still isn't seamless. And I've got this example here of an American company that was sending happy birthday emails to their clients. They had good intentions. Here's a special deal for you for your birthday, happy birthday, and celebrating it with them. But there's an error in this email. It didn't have the customer's name. They sent it to their customers, trying to reward them and celebrate their birthday, but they forgot their name. And this is something that even if you didn't have the customer's name, you could have just had a blank space here, which would have been better than F name. Because the challenge now with this is that the customer now knows that it's automated. Oh, this isn't just for me, this is for everyone. And they can start to see that there's an error here, and it loses its substance and the value it was trying to create. So it's really important that we think about the basic elements here as well and closing those data gaps. Sometimes it is just a simple thing of having a default if you don't have the customer's name in the database, which is what was missing in this example here. So it pulls through something else if the name isn't there. Really important that we think about this here. That strategic element was partly there, but kind of fell over there at the data gap. And when we have the data, this is a snapshot of my inbox. This is what I tend to see on a weekly basis. I spoke at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and I got the audience to raise their hands if their inbox also looked very similar. And most of the audience raised their hands. So for everyone here listening, maybe with your emojis, do you tend to see this in your inbox where you are getting emails maybe from an organization that you don't know, and maybe they're using your name, even if you're not sure who they are? So in this example of my inbox, I'm getting emails from somebody called Sarah from an organization that I don't know. And the first email comes in, Jenna, was it something I said? So they have my name, they're using data, they're putting in personalization. I don't know who they are. The second email, hi there, Jenna, it's me again. I haven't opened the first email, I haven't engaged with that first email, but they send me a second. This is my third attempt to contact you, Jenna. This is the third email. I still haven't engaged with them yet. I still don't know who they are. Jenna, I can't seem to reach you. They seem to know me at this point, which is getting a little bit scary. Jenna, I know you're busy, but because I still haven't engaged with them, Jenna, I get the feeling this isn't a priority. That's taken 6 emails to get to that point of maybe thinking this email isn't quite a priority for me. Jenna, should I wave the white flag? Should I give up? Now, in a real life scenario, if someone kept coming to your door, they kept coming to your house or your apartment, and they kept knocking on the door, and they were using your name and saying, I know you're in there, open the door, I want to speak to you, we would be pretty scared and put off by that. And in a real life scenario, if we had this experience of my inbox in a real life scenario, we would consider that stalking. Yet this is an everyday occurrence. So even if we have the data, think about the value aspect there that we're providing, especially with things like email marketing, but across your marketing strategy. So I'm going to talk through now my own online customer experience, actually, just so we can see what this looks like when we're talking multi and omni-channel, and we've got lots of different channels coming into play here, and what that experience looks like. So we're currently renovating our house here that we bought a partial ruin, and we're renovating it. And I had the fun job of buying toilet seats. I live a real rock and roll lifestyle, obviously. And I started Googling toilet seats, not the funnest shopping experience of my life. And Amazon comes up. So I think, okay, I'll have a look. I'll see what they've got. And it'll be quick delivery. I know that from past experience. Then I go to Instagram. I see ads for toilet seats. I don't want to see ads for toilet seats on my Instagram. It's not the most exciting product in the world, but I also don't want to now be targeted with toilet seats. I then go to my inbox and I see we have other toilet seats you might be interested in, toilet seat accessories that you might also be interested in. So now my inbox is full with all information you can imagine about toilet seats. So I thought I'm going to do a bit of research and see if this has been something that Amazon has been doing for a while. And I come across this tweet from 2018, which shows you how long this automation and marketing activity has been running. Dear Amazon, I bought a toilet seat because I needed one. Necessity, not desire. I do not collect them. I am not a toilet seat addict. No matter how temptingly you email me, I'm not going to think, oh, go on then, just one more toilet seat, I'll treat myself. And that is so true. This automation, this whole approach to the marketing strategy doesn't apply to the product of a toilet seat. It's not a desirable purchase. It's probably one you're going to do once or twice in your lifetime and hopefully not have to repeat it. Yet, Amazon have applied the same automated journey and experience across their entire product portfolio. And they haven't thought about the wider context as to whether it's relevant. So again, it's really important. We've got automation, we've got AI there, but some of the fundamental basics we could definitely be improving upon. And that's just a really good prime example there. Because context is absolutely everything. The context there of the toilet seat purchase is really missing. I'm not going to purchase that again. I'm not going to want to see that on Instagram. Yet that's been applied across their entire product category. So do think about, for your own organization or any future marketing approaches, or if you're studying marketing, think about what is that context? How do we add value to the customer? How do we improve their experience with us? So if we think about context here, we should always think about how do we ensure that we include the human element in our marketing, even when we use machines. So we saw that example there at the very beginning where the customer's name is missing from a happy birthday email, and it loses that human touch. Because if your friend forgot your name, you'd probably be pretty upset. might have remembered your birthday, but they forgot your name. So it's important that we think about the human element, even when we're using AI and we're using other technology like automation. It's still important. So how do we do that? Let's take a look at another example here. This is a real customer example I've got permission to share. Her name is Hannah, and she is in her 20s. And she had a really unfortunate and sad time in her life when her father had passed away. And she was helping her mum contact the organizations, letting them know of the situation. And one of those situations and organizations that she spoke to was the bank. And the banking organization in the UK, a global organization, asked Hannah, as she was helping her mum, to send a letter with the death certificate and letting them know of the information about her dad. So that's what she did. She posted that to them. Now, they sent a letter back to Hannah enclosing her dad's original death certificate. I want you just to take a moment just to think about what you would expect the human response to be from the banking organization to Hannah, based on her situation. It was a very difficult situation. They're giving a response back, enclosing some very sensitive documentation. It's a very personal situation as well, a very upsetting one. So we think about what that human response would be in branch. We would probably expect to be treated with empathy. We would expect to maybe be given some next steps, some guidance, support, compassion, friendliness, some sympathy for our situation. And this is the letter that Hannah received back from the bank. Dear Mrs. Layford, thank you for your recent correspondence. Please find enclosed your original documentation. That's her father's death certificate. Yours sincerely, manager, the manager of the local branch. Now we can see it lacks compassion, it lacks empathy, it lacks sympathy, and it has no next steps at all. It doesn't guide Hannah on what's going to happen now. It doesn't give her any support, no sympathy or anything. It has no human element here. That compassion piece is completely missing. Now, I had the opportunity to provide training as a separate project for this banking organization, this global bank. And I'd spoken to Hannah about her experience, and she gave me permission to share it if I had the opportunity to do so with the bank. I went through this same scenario that I've just gone through with you there, with the example of Hannah and her experience, and presented them back with the letter that was sent. And they said the same. They expected to see compassion and empathy and support. And when I let them know it was their organization that had sent it, not only were they shocked and horrified that this is something that they as an organization were sending to their customers, I was really surprised that they did not know, A, that they were sending this communication to customers in no circumstance. They didn't know which team or department was responsible for the communication, and they didn't know which system and technology was sending it to be able to change it. So we could set up automations and leave them for years and years and years, which is what's happened here, and apply a broad brush to all circumstances and all contexts and forget about it, and actually not realize that some of the lack of humanness and the impact that this type of communication can have to somebody based on their context and their customer journey. Because our risk as marketeers and as business owners is that we lose empathy as we collaborate more with machines. And I think that's a really good example there with that banking organization, where the empathy has been lost through the use of technology because it's been applied to all contexts. So again, that context piece is really, really important. So if you have access to automations, or you're thinking about setting up automations, or you're studying automation, and do think about how do we keep that human element in what we're doing, even though we're using technology. Okay, so going into the technology, ChatGPT, lots of talk about ChatGPT. So how do we use AI based on those examples to actually be useful to us as marketers, but also to keep that human element? There's a way to do it using the AIDA formula. And this is where we think about the attention we want to grab. Now, the thing to think about with ChatGPT prompts is that they need to be very directional. You need to be really clear on what you're trying to either discover or write or create or do. And the more information and more direction that you can give the tool, like ChatGPT or Bard or any of the others, the better the response will be that you will receive back. So if we start with the AIDA formula, you might find this quite useful when you're creating prompts. And if you have a second tab open or another screen, do give this a whirl in ChatGPT. I'm going to give some demos as well. And you will get the slides after the session, so you'll be able to practice these and use these. So the starting point of the AIDA formula is to have the attention. We want to grab the reader's attention with a bold statement, a fact, or a question. Now, what we want to think about here for ChatGPT is, what is the question that we need an answer to? Or what is the statement we're trying to create if it's copy that we're wanting to use the generative AI to help us with? And be really clear on that. As clear as you can be. Of course, you can refine it once you start to get some responses back from the system as well. Then look at the interest. So how do we hook the reader's interest with features and benefits? So if we have a question, what is it we're trying to get? What is our question? What is it we're expecting? How much detail are we expecting to get back in our answer? If we're trying to create a bold statement, who is the reader? What are their interests? What key features should we be presenting ChatGPT with? What should they be pulling out? What should they be drawing on? Then we have the desire. So what are we wanting if we're creating copy? How are we wanting the reader to feel when they read this copy? And you could think about the emotional aspect here, or we want to drive an action potentially. You know, what is it we're trying to do with this piece of copy, if we think about it in that sense for the desire? And then for the action, what is that call to action? Once they read the copy, what's your expectation? Is it going into an email campaign, for example? Or would it be linking on to downloading a brochure or a guide or signing up to a newsletter? Or maybe a response on social media? Really thinking about what you want that action to be. And breaking down your prompt in this way really helps you to be very directional with ChatGPT, and also allows you to really think about what you're trying to get, what response you're trying to get, but also what information you really need based on that formula there. So let's take a look. So here's an example of me putting this into ChatGPT using that formula. And in here, I'm asking it to craft a blog post around recyclable clothing in a conversational tone. So I'm being really quite directional here. I'm asking it to use transitional words and an active voice throughout, and to create a 1,000-word article and structure it in a beginner's guide as a style. Beginner's guide, because that's my audience. I'm aiming at a beginner's audience. If you are wanting to maybe aim at a advanced audience, depending on what your target audience is going to be, or what your readership will be, that's what you want to direct into ChatGPT. I've then asked it to think about 6 sections and to identify titles and subtitles for those. And I've also given it keywords to identify, so that I'm really here now starting to think about the SEO aspect and getting much more strategic with my prompt. I'm also asking it to create some SEO metadata for me as well, and to produce the 100-word description that I can use. So it's doing all of that together, so it's all consistent with each other, rather than trying to do it all separately. So let's see what it produces. So we can see it's got the title, it's got its introduction, it's doing the 6 sections that I've asked for. It's using active voice that I've asked for. It's a beginner's blog. It's got a mixture of questions in there. It's got transitional words. And then, of course, you can go through this, put it through your brand tone of voice if you have one, or make changes and adjustments to it as well. But it's a great starting point for creating any copy. And here we can see it's going to now start doing the short SEO friendly slug there and the meta description at the bottom that I asked it to do. So that meta description there at the very bottom allows you then to put that into your website content and your web page if you're also managing that aspect as well. But thinking about this as a all-encompassing prompt. So not just creating the blog content, but also then you could be thinking about the imagery it might recommend as well. The SEO aspect is really important to feed in there, to have that strategic angle. So if we look at it from another example here, let's say your keywords are organic face moisturizer, and you want to now use ChatGPT to give you some ideas for other keywords that are related to your kind of most focused keywords that you have at the moment on your website that will now attract new customers. So in this prompt here that we have, where we're asking ChatGPT a question, we are giving it directional guidance based on the keywords organic face moisturizer. We're also saying that we want to attract new customers, not an existing audience. Now we could put in there what our existing audience looks like to give it some more information, so it's more contextualized. You could also add that in there as well. The results start to then give you some keyword ideas, which you would then vet and see whether or not it's suitable for your organization, suitable based on your product portfolio. You know, what products are you selling? Do these keywords match? Maybe also now you start to see that you might have some gaps in your content. You might need to create some more content on your website that's focused around these keywords to attract new visitors. And that can then start feeding into your content marketing strategy. It might be that actually you think, well, we could be doing this more on social media. And you could think about this more holistically across your entire digital marketing strategy as well. And this is how we start to use it much more strategically, because ChatGPT is a great way to generate ideas. This helps you to expand your keyword list in this example and refine any existing content topics or new topics that you're identifying. But the important point here is that it still needs the marketer. It still needs the human. The human still needs to vet ChatGPT outputs. It still needs to check that it's relevant to the context that you've set. So as we've seen with those 2 previous examples I've just walked you through, the context was missing in some elements. The human element was missing. We still need to add that human element to ChatGPT. So using it strategically in marketing, we want to think about the strategy. And that's where you can start to really refine your prompts, but also where you use and when you use AI, when you use other tools and technology as well. I created the strategy framework to really help break down exactly what should be included in a strategy. I'd worked in marketing for more than 10 years. I'm a chartered marketer, but I've come across a lot of challenges in trying to distinguish strategy and tactics. And the two need to really work together. But what we typically do in the marketing industry is spend a lot of time on the tactical element and not necessarily setting the foundations of our strategy, and not doing so in a solid enough way to support those tactics. So it starts with identifying the scenario. And we were doing that in our ChatGPT prompts there in those examples. We're going to look at some more in a second as well. Setting the scene, setting the scenario, what's happening outside and inside the organization that could impact what you're trying to do. What is it that ChatGPT needs to know that's happening that can then give you a more accurate, valid, and useful response to you? Your target are your objectives. Everything should be focused around your objectives and in achieving those. That includes your measurement, that includes your tactics that you choose, how you implement your marketing plan and strategy as well. And the target, the objectives should always be aligned to the organizational goals and objectives. We then have reach, which is the audience. Who are they? I was actually reading the rationale behind Disney Plus launching, and it wasn't just because they needed to get onto a streaming platform. It was actually because they didn't really know much about their online audience, because they had partnered so much with other suppliers and not used their own platforms. They didn't know a lot about their audience at all. So they weren't sure if they were quite hitting the mark on things that they were providing online, which is interesting for a company like Disney, because you'd assume that they know everything about their customer base, but they had a lot of disconnections, and that prompted the launch of Disney Plus on their own platform, which is an interesting story, one that we do cover in the course actually as well. Then awareness. So where is the audience? How do we reach them? You know, this is all focused on the target customer. Your tactics, the fun part of marketing, I like to call it. Your channels, the approaches, how you're going to engage your audience. Execution, the resources, the time, the money. Generate, how are you going to get those results? What are you expecting back? And that all links back to your objectives. And then the yield is a really important post-reflection on what worked, what didn't, what do we need to do more of, what do we need to stop, based on what you've learned from either a campaign or a full year of marketing planning that you might be doing and executing. So you see how much goes into a strategy before we get to the tactical part, which is really important because they all start to connect together. So if we look at it from the scenario analysis, we could use ChatGPT to start helping us, point us in the right direction of where we need to conduct our research. Maybe we don't know much about the market that we're operating in, or maybe we just don't know much about the organization we've just joined, or one that we might be going to for an interview, or an organization that we might be interested in. We could start to use ChatGPT to help us uncover that information. So let's take a look. I've got here in the example, the goal here is to understand more about the behavior of my customers. Our customers are Gen Z, based in the UK, and highly conscious about their purchases' impact on the environment. Give me the top 10 behavioral characteristics of this group of customers based on research. And I've specified the year of the sources there. Now, we could be more specific about our customer base in this example here, but just to give you an idea of how you might also be able to use ChatGPT. So let's take a look at its response. Okay, so we can see here that it's starting to give out some key characteristics of a generalized Gen Z. That's obviously a very generalized look at your customers. This is a starting point. This isn't the definition of your audience. The other part I just wanted to highlight here as well is that the information in here is only going up to 2022. So it's basing its information from 2022 and before, not 2022 up to now. So it is important when we are using ChatGPT, and if we are going to use it for research, that we use it as a starting point. It points us in the direction of where else we might need to uncover and find more research and more evidence that's more up to date and validate, you know, some points here that it's making about a particular audience. So it is important that we bear that in mind when we're using ChatGPT there as well. But you can see it gives you some really good starting points to conduct further research, particularly if you didn't really know anything about that audience. You could do this for industries, for companies, you know, for particular software. You could use it to really help you give an overview and a starting point. The other aspect for scenario here is also to, if you're within a company already or thinking about joining a company or you're studying marketing, is to think about what does the internal marketing look like in the organization, and critique that as well in terms of what's the existing functionality and activity of the marketing department. How do they set their KPIs? How do they engage their target audience? But the reverse of that is, what's the limitations? What is holding their marketing back? Maybe it's the structure of the marketing team isn't making them agile enough. And really starting to think about internally, maybe there's some areas here that could be improved upon to help you achieve those objectives that you're setting. And then leverage. So what is successful that could be redone or leveraged further as an opportunity? What could we do more of? What can we build upon? And when we look at targets, we want to be as specific as possible. The amount of times my agency receives these objectives from other organizations that we're working with can be really challenging for us to then add any value or actually to create a marketing plan and campaign from. Things like increase revenue, full stop, no context. I don't know how much they want to increase it by or when or what the current revenue already looks like. So it's important to add that context piece there. Let's send more emails. Why is my first question there? Because everyone else is, or because your customers are there? Really starting to question and critique strategically. Okay, how do we refine this further so it's really useful? And then we have advertise on Clubhouse. I don't know how many of you here today remember Clubhouse, but it's kind of nowhere to be seen now. And a lot of companies really ran and jumped onto Clubhouse without thinking about it strategically. We went straight in with the tactics. So when we're thinking about our objectives, do think about, why are we setting it? When are we wanting to achieve it by, and who? We're increasing revenue for a particular product, to a particular audience, to a particular demographic. What are we trying to do here? Being really specific with that, because that really helps with the measurement piece and getting buy-in. And this goes back to the strategy. The strategy is the who, what, where, when, and why. That's what the strategy details. And that needs to be really featured into your objectives as much as possible. Tactics is the how. That's how we get to who we're targeting, where we want to be, when we want to do it by. To look at it another way, strategy is the map which takes you to your destination, and tactics are the vehicles you use to get there. We need that strategy, we need the map, we need the plan, but then we want the vehicles, which is where AI and automation and technology come in there. So some examples here of targets and objectives at the top, but also a ChatGPT prompt for creating objectives, or maybe refining an existing objective that you might have been given, or maybe you set yourself an individual objective, and you want to refine that further. Have a go at it. You can have a play around in ChatGPT as well, and keep refining your prompts to what suits you in terms of the responses that you're getting back as well. So at the top here, we've got increased conversions of our hiking shoes, very specific product type, by 25%. So we've got our context and goal. In the next quarter, there's our time frame, by targeting our existing loyal customers. Now we've got our target audience there, which is also defined, which we could define further. Maybe it's in a particular country or area or location as well. Our ChatGPT prompt, we've got, I'm a digital marketing strategist using the SMART framework, which is a great framework to use when creating objectives, to develop a digital marketing strategy objective. Please draft a SMART objective based on the following statements. And there you would put in the product type, the goal, increase revenue by X amount, or increase the amount of views, or whatever that objective is, the target audience, the time frame. And then ChatGPT can start to build out your objectives and start drafting them, and you can further refine them. It can help you give some ideas based on that structure. When we're thinking about our customers and driving awareness, there are lots of different tactics and tools that we could use here. But the customer journey is a really important focal point. And this is where we've got an example here on the screen. This example actually has taken directly from the course content. And we have a module on customer journey mapping so that you can understand, okay, what's the scenario, what's the context of the customer based on their customer journey, the current position that they are, whether that's driving awareness, maybe they don't know anything about your organization right now. The acquisition, so actually trying to drive that new customer and prospect into acquiring your services, you know, being interested, maybe looking at reviews and testimonials, you're wanting to build trust. So then they convert and they go into the conversion stage there in the center. And then you've got retention. So how do we retain our customers that we've converted? How do we keep them coming back? And then we have at the very end here about driving loyalty. So having advocates, people talk about our brand, our services and products because they've had such a great experience. Now we can see here on this diagram the number of different tactics, media and channels that could all be used here. And this is where it becomes really important for marketeers to be able to understand what's the most relevant for their audience based on the objective, but also their business, their organization, and the industry that they're operating in. So a great way to start understanding, where do our customers engage with us currently? Like what channels is that on? What's their experience look like? And then being able to refine that further. So if we now look at call to action, so let's say we've chosen the conversion part of our customer journey, and we now need to create a call to action. We want to drive an action, a CTA. And we're going to use ChatGPT to help us with some ideas, generate some ideas for us. So our prompt, my goal is to, and you've got your goal. So what is that key action that you want to do? Do you want to drive more sales? Do you want them to download a brochure? What do you want that action to be? And that can be a particular product or service you might be focusing on, or a particular value. Maybe it's a discount, maybe it's a VIP sign up, whatever that looks like for your organization. Please help me write a call to action to achieve my goal. The CTA should be direct and use active language, should be short, simple, commanding, and strong. Remember I said at the very beginning, be direct with ChatGPT. And I've put please help me here. And the reason why I put please help me there, write a call to action, is because I was working with a client who was implementing ChatGPT, and she was being so polite in her prompts. She was saying please and thank you, and can you do this for me, and can you do that for me, as if it was an assistant. And that's a great way to think about ChatGPT. It's an assistant to help you. So you can put please or just help me, even more direct if you'd like to. Be interesting, so offer something that solves a problem. Now you could dictate what that is based on your product, service, or the value. But I would try and not be too restrictive with your prompt so that you do get lots of ideas coming back. Use power words. Now, you don't have to dictate what they are. You're giving that direction to ChatGPT to use power words and giving it the option to choose which ones it thinks. A hint at urgency if it is an urgent product, service, value that you're offering in the call to action. And remove the risk. So maybe you're finding that actually there's a big barrier to driving conversions, and that could be that they feel that actually they can't cancel at any time, and you need to make that an important point. Maybe you've received some feedback from customers. So you might also want ChatGPT to just bear that in mind, because you find that that's very important to your organization. So you could add that in there as well. But you might also think that actually that's just not necessary for me. These are here as a guideline. Please do take them and test them and adapt them and reframe them to what's going to be most useful to you. And then we've got, please write 3 different CTAs for me, or 5 or 10. you can ask ChatGPT to create more than one if you wanted to create 10 different ideas. I've seen lots of organizations and email marketers using ChatGPT to create ideas for subject lines. You could put in some examples, some framing of maybe some keywords that you've used previously that work particularly well, and then giving that as guidance to ChatGPT to generate some more ideas. So let's take a look. So I've put the goal in there of the hiking shoes that we were looking at, the objective, put in some information about the product in terms of the materials it's made from, and now I've asked it to create the CTA based on that product information. And I've asked for 3 CTA examples here as well. What's interesting in all 3 of these is that they include emojis, which is interesting. So something you might want to A/B test with your audience to see how successful that is. Let me bring that back up there to the end. It was a bit of a abrupt start, and I can pause it so you can see. So we can see here that there's lots of different examples. You might think, well, actually, these are quite long call to actions, and you might want to reduce them down further. You could have another prompt where you're dictating, actually, it needs to just be within this character limit or this many words, and start to get really specific with it as well there. But you see how it starts to generate those ideas. It really starts you thinking, particularly if this is something that maybe you do every week and you want to just get a little bit of extra ideas from something else. This is where that assistant piece comes in, can be really, really helpful. A book that I really recommend based on the topic of this webinar is To Think Simple. And it's by Ken Segall. It's a brilliant book. It's for people running businesses, not running businesses, people interested in maybe running a business, studying marketing, in marketing. It's for a whole range of people, including entrepreneurs as well. But it's great because it really starts to open your mind and think about that actually complexity isn't really necessary, and everything can be very, very simple. And I think if there's something we take away from those 2 examples from Amazon and the toilet seats appearing on my Instagram, and with Hannah and her situation there in response back from the bank, is that actually the process is very complex, and being able to make that a simpler journey, to be able to include that context to me when I'm looking at toilet seats, that maybe I don't want to be bombarded with toilet seat ads. And the same for Hannah, that actually the simplicity there in the technology that's being used in the organizational structure of who's managing that automation and so on could be a lot simpler. And then you can include that human context in there. So a brilliant book I highly recommend if you haven't read it before. Okay, so AI for marketing, to assist you in your marketing activity, whether you're studying or you're writing, or you want to just you want to learn, you want to see what's available. I've just included 4 examples here of other tools that are AI assistants that are specialists in particular areas of marketing, particular channels and tactics. So there's Copy for email, which generates some really great email copy, brilliant ideas. It's very specific to email, which has clear restrictions in terms of character limits and format and structure and so on. So really great if you're producing lots of email copy, you just want to give it a whirl and have a look. There's Ad Creative for advertisements. That can really help generate some ideas there as well. SEO, we've got Write Sonic. And this isn't about, making sure we include keywords in every sentence. This is about organically creating content that's relevant to what the search is looking for. That's a great tool for that. And then for paraphrasing, maybe you find that actually you just need to paraphrase some content that you've written, or you want to learn how to do it. This is a Quillbot is a great tool for that as well. So do check them out. There's lots of other tools coming out, AI tools as well, but these are some of the more refined ones and ones that I've used as well for these tactics. I recommend. So key takeaways, I'm conscious of time there. So strategic thinking is vital in all areas of the company, not just marketing, but across the board in what I've seen in the marketing industry is that we do still have a real gap in strategic marketers. They are very sought after. And the reason for that is so that the organization can not only make sure that they are relevant to their target audience, but also think outside the company. You know, what's happening outside of the organization that could impact the company and its approach and its offering. And strategic marketeers and strategic marketing leaders are very open and adaptive and very responsive and aware of what's happening in that wider environment, because they're conducting research regularly, they're intrigued by it, but they're also critically thinking all the time, always questioning why. And that's so important. It's such an important skill to have, particularly if you're looking to progress into a digital marketing leader role. Even if we have access to lots of data, it's not always relevant or useful. I think that's the important point as well here, that even if we have lots of data and we have lots of tools, we still need to make sure that we are making sure that it's relevant, we have the context, and we're really thinking about the human element, the customer at the end of it. Always think about the end customer. I can't stress that enough. The number of organizations that I've worked with personally, big established companies, you don't necessarily always think about the end customer. It really does start to diminish any returns on investment, on the competitiveness of the organization over a period of time. And leading on to that, do research the customer's behavior. Me as a marketer, I'm not the typical customer. I gave that example there of Amazon because I was looking at it through the eyes of a customer, but I'm not the typical audience, and you're probably not either. So do think about understanding who exactly those customers are. What do they like? What do they dislike? Because that can tell you a lot there in terms of how the organization could position itself or not position itself. And what are their expectations? Not just from you as an organization, but generally, because expectations get impacted on by other organizations that might not be direct competitors with us. Machines and technologies can only do so much. So as humans, we have to steer them in the right direction. You know, when we talk about AI, there's always the discussion about jobs and maybe overtaking people's roles and jobs. And I don't see that at all. We still need that human element, as I've shown today. We still need to add that empathy, that context, and the machine just can't do that for us. And that's it for me here. I'm not quite sure why the last slide isn't coming up, but that's fine. If you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, please do. You can just search my name, or on Twitter. And of course, if you have any questions, please ask away. I see a couple have popped up already, so please do ask away in the Q&A, but I hope you find that really useful. And please do test out those prompts. Let me know how you get on. So over to you now, I think, Daniel.
Thank you, Jenna. I'll ask if you can, just for the next few moments, stick around and we'll go through a couple of the questions, and I've got one for yourself as well. But thank you. That was so insightful and will assist many in adapting, utilising and leveraging the benefits of AI and ChatGPT in particular, and we get asked about it a great deal. First question from Elisa. Is it worth it or necessary to use ChatGPT Plus?
Yeah, good question. My examples there were taken from the standard ChatGPT, so no, not everyone has access to Plus. It does. I think there is value in it. If you find that you're going to use it as your assistant, then I definitely think it is valuable. It does start to refine the responses that it gives you. It starts to really learn very quickly. If you can, when you're logging in, you're keeping your responses, it really learns every time on what you like, what you don't like, what your prompts are. You can really fine tune it to your own personality to an extent and what you're looking for. So I think if it's something that you are finding value in with the free version, then you probably will find it very, very useful.
Exactly. Individual circumstances and the amount of usage. As you said, there's great benefit to that. Start with free, and if you find that there's other functionality that can be adapted, then obviously move ahead with Plus. Another question. There's news regarding Meta's plans to label all AI images on Instagram and Facebook in a crackdown on deceptive content. What does this mean for marketers who may need or want to try AI copy or images? They go on to say, I haven't done so yet, but would be interested to know if it would be detrimental to showing that human element.
Yeah, great question, and really great to hear you're keeping up on the news, because it's a fast moving area. In terms of the imagery, it is a really interesting one. I know there's huge amounts of debate, and I was keeping a really close eye on a couple of news stories where images of celebrities had been used without their permission and been used within AI. Imagery is a very challenging area from copyright perspectives anyway, typically. And so even if you were using imagery from like Unsplash or a free gallery stock list, then you should still be crediting it in some way. So I think what will end up probably happening there is that there will need to be accreditation that's been AI generated. In terms of the copy piece, I would never take copy verbatim out of ChatGPT without some editing to it, which is why I was saying during the webinar to use it as like your starting point, or to generate ideas, or to refine some of your thinking, or something that maybe you've already started. At the moment, in its current form, and obviously it's rapidly improving, I can see when something's been ChatGPT generated and not looked over and maybe not been read through, because it's lacking that slight humanness. So I think it's still important to do that, to use it as your guiding point and to give you some ideas in that area, but to definitely refine it further.
Completely agree. We see examples in all sorts of areas. Therefore, I guess it's not necessarily needing to be referenced once you've made additions and you've used it as that template, as you said, or that starting point. You've worked a tool to become to then mold it to your own. A couple of other questions coming through, and please add them. I am going to stay a bit longer and now answer questions specific to the program, the entry criteria, the application process, and how we can support with payment plans and the like. Isabel has asked, ChatGPT uses data up to some time ago, so it's not always be the most relevant and updated info. How to work around that? I think I know the answer, but I'm going to defer, obviously, to the expert in the room, in you, Jenna.
I'm intrigued now on what your answer will be. Yeah, so research tools and techniques and the ability to research is still very, very important, and a real sought after skill in marketing. If you're able to refine those skills and really think about, what you're looking for your research, that's still very, very valuable, even with ChatGPT, because as you said, and as I showed in my example, it goes up to 2022. The likelihood is that it will start to become more and more recent information as it evolves. But exactly that, using it as your starting point and building upon it, and then actually researching and looking for other resources, research papers, white papers, pieces and blogs and content that's been written by authorities in the space is still really, really valuable. And I can't stress that enough for digital marketing, because I think sometimes it has a bit of a misconception that information is really easy to find. And it's a real skill to be able to dig into the search engines and really find something that really gives an answer to what you're looking for. So being able to practice that really, really is important.
That's a very, very good point. And I guess in terms of this program offering that with the academic underpinnings that LSE are so infamous or so famous for, that enables the analytics side of things and the research side of things to be honed, I guess. Is that a fair assessment and statement?
Yeah, definitely. So as part of the course, a big focus is on critical thinking, conducting research, And the course itself is very heavily researched. So being able to not only just gather the research, but critically think as to what is that research telling me? And maybe then it prompts you into another question and another area that you're interested in. So yeah, the course itself definitely helps you refine that skill.
I'll let you have a go at this one. In terms of qualifications, would the 6-month course with LSE in the Career Accelerator be acceptable for most digital sector jobs, or it is a top-up course? Do you want to answer that, or would you like me to?
Yeah, I can start and you can jump in. No problem. Yeah, so the course has been aimed at marketeers that have experience between 2 to 4 years, but we are very aware that there are career switchers, people who are looking to move, maybe have had some exposure to marketing, but they haven't had the opportunity in marketing. So we have also aimed it for those people as well that are looking to switch, maybe to join a marketing career. By the end of the course, the Career Accelerator is putting you into a position with experience and case studies and a portfolio that puts you into a position of looking at leadership roles. Now, if you already have some marketing experience, then moving into the leadership role, this course will help you massively to progress very quickly into doing that. If you're looking to transition and switch from a career into marketing, then it will be looking to go into a management level and then progressing into a leadership level. But it really fills that gap, and sometimes, years of progress to move from management up into senior leadership, because we really are going to help you think about leadership style, creating your own manifesto. How do you manage a team? What's a marketing department look like, and make it as real life as possible with an employer project as well, a real life employer project.
And I'll touch on that shortly. I'm aware of your time. Isabel's got a follow-up question regarding that. What if one's already in a leadership role? Is the value in that the freshness of the content and plugging potential gaps and the like as well?
Yes, definitely. So we start with setting a real solid strategic basis, which we then grow. So we do that within course 1. Course 2 is very focused on campaign planning, but implementation, execution, how to do that very effectively using tools that are very current. So automation, AI, how do I bring this into the organization? And then course 3 is about that leadership piece. And we can always refine and refresh as marketeers and as leaders. But the first course, the strategic part, the aspect, is something that you could definitely further refine and develop and gain more experience in. Plus, you get the opportunity to learn from other peers and of the course as well, and the academics and their own experience.
Wonderful. I hope that helps, Isabel. And as it's brand new, this is the first presentation of the program. It's fair to say it's the freshest content available as well. I'm going to thank you, Jenna. It has been an absolute delight, I'm sure, from everyone's perspective in attendance, and mine especially as well, to hear you speak about the topic at hand today, and obviously for your contribution and expertise in designing this content that will help people transition or advance their careers within digital marketing. I'm going to stick around. Thank you so much, Jenna. It's very much appreciated. And just a reminder for everyone that the presentation and the recording will be distributed within 48 hours or so once it's been through the process. But thank you for so much of your time, Jenna. It's greatly appreciated.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me, and great to see so many of you here. Thanks a lot. Bye.